Hello and welcome to the Handed Down podcast, celebrating traditional songs and the people who sing them. And today we have not just one guest, but three. And I'm going to ask you each to introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Reg Meuross. I'm a singer-songwriter and I live in Somerset.
Hi, I'm David Harbottle and I'm one half of Harbottle and Jonas, based here in Devon.
Hello, I'm Freya Jonas. I'm the other half of Harbottle and Jonas, and I'm also based in Devon.
Well, welcome to the show, all of you. It's absolutely fantastic to have you on. As you said in your introduction, you are better known as a solo act and a duo, but the reason you're all on together is because you recently released an album together of traditional songs called Songs of Love and Death. And I have to say, it's an album of absolute folk bangers. So it's great to be talking about that today, and one of the songs in particular. But before we go into today's song, could you tell me a little bit more about the album, how it came about and what you were looking to do with it? And I think, Dave and Freya, am I right in thinking it came from one of your projects originally?
Yes, it was, I think it was probably in the summer of 2020. We were really doing quite a lot of online collaborations to just fill our social media feed with interesting things to keep people at home entertained and to kind of keep our profile relevant. And one of the first people we asked to collaborate with was Reg, because we've long been a fan of his songwriting, and we often played some of his songs, cover songs at our gigs, and so it just felt like a really good choice, and he was up for it, and that's how it started. And he sent across the song, just his interpretation of a traditional folk song, and we arranged it, and then I kind of put it in a split screen format, which you can still find these videos on YouTube and Facebook. So we did one and it seemed to go well, and then we ended up doing 10.
Reg, you're very well known as a songwriter. Well, actually all of you are, but Reg, what made you record that first traditional song with Dave and Freya?
Well, I knew they were fans of my songwriting, so I thought I'd stir it up a bit and do something traditional. I think it just coincided. I was doing a similar thing to them, except I was doing it from my shed. I was doing like a Sunday afternoon, Sunday jukebox, I was calling it, and I was just kind of getting fans to write in and make requests, and then I'd do this show. And when they asked me, I thought the obvious thing would be to do one of my songs, them having done England Green, England Grey. And I was thinking about doing different stuff. I was thinking, because I had this sort of newfound freedom of, everybody stuck in their homes and me being in my shed, I thought, I'll do something different. And Lord Franklin, I just thought a traditional song would just make a nice change, and Lord Franklin was probably one of the very first songs I ever learned to play. Certainly, I think the first folk song, traditional song I ever learned to play. And so I was just recording stuff on my phone. So I thought, well, I'll give it a go and see what they come up with. So I just recorded the little video on the phone and sent it to them. And what they came up with was magnificent. It was beyond my expectations. I had no idea you could do that with the equipment that we had. But I was really pleased with it.
So actually the whole project started with the song Lord Franklin.
Yeah, so that was the way in. And, it was my way into traditional music in the first place. So it was fitting that we should do that.
Tell me a little bit more about that, Reg. So you said that was your way into traditional music. How did that all start for you?
I had 3 albums that I can remember. A soul album. It was with Aretha Franklin and Wilson Pickett and all those, Otis Redding. And I had a soul compilation. I had a Alan Lomax compilation of blues music, like chain gang music. I can remember these 3 albums. I probably had more, but these are the 3 that really stick in my mind. And I had a compilation of traditional guitar players, I suppose. People like John Fay, Bert Jansch. I think Martin Carthy was on it, and John Renbourn. And it was kind of where I sort of learned. I wouldn't say I learned guitar from it, but it was certainly a source. And one song I kept going back to was Lord Franklin, and the John Renbourn version. I later found out he played it in a really unusual key. I always thought that he did this clever open tuning thing, and then one day I found a tutorial by John, and I think he played it in E major, which is kind of unusual, really, because it, any guitarists out there will know that it involves bar chords and so on, and I tend to avoid bar chords like the plague. So I just stuck a capo on and did it that way, and I've just always loved the song. I'm not sure whether it was called Lady Franklin's Lament in the original version, but it it's Lady Franklin singing to her lost husband who's got lost in the Northwest Passage, and so it's just a beautiful song, and it's kind of stuck with me, I suppose.
Freya and Dave, I know you've recorded an album of songs about the sea in the past. Is it something about the seafaring nature of this song that attracted you to it, or was it something else?
With this song and with all of the songs on the album, we just so appreciate Reg's arrangements of them, how he has kind of breathed new life into these songs and really made them his own as well. So it was just a joy to add parts to it. It felt very very fresh. It was lovely to be a part of that. We do enjoy a seafaring song and a good kind of maritime tale. So yeah, definitely the content of this one particularly was a bit of a draw for us.
We were watching the Terror at the time, which has proved to be real. Factually accurate to what happened, I think. So that was a real insight for us.
Have any of you done any kind of research into the Franklin story? Because I have to admit, I'm a bit of a Lord Franklin geek when it comes to this. It's quite a compelling story. So I wondered if any of you were into that as well.
I knew that the bit about the Northwest Passage, and I think. And that he was kind of a serial explorer, wasn't he? He was kind of always kind of breaking new bounds and stuff like that. But I was just drawn to it. I was just drawn to the love story. Personally, there was also Bob Dylan's Dream. As I was riding on a train going west, I fell asleep for to take my rest. I dreamed a dream. I thought it true. About my friends, the first few friends I knew, where he basically rewrites Lord Franklin, and that would have been around the same time for me. I would have heard that song around the same time, and I thought that was really cool that somebody like Dylan would be rewriting a traditional ballad. And there's something about that opening verse which is just so romantic and sort of draws you in. And also, Freya sort of touched on it earlier. I with all of these songs, I went for the ones that I thought I could make my own. I thought the ones that I thought I could sing in the way that I sing. I could have gone the traditional route and tried to sort of do more of a conventional traditional arrangement or sing it in a more conventionally traditional way, but I wanted to make them sound as much as possible like my own songs, and Franklin had all of that, had all of those elements.
One of the interesting things about the story for me is just the mystery, because even now we still don't really know what happened to the Franklin crew.
They found the boat though, haven't they?
They did find the boat eventually, yeah, but quite what happened to the crew in their last days. People have tried to piece it together, but there's still that mystery, and I think that does come through in the lyrics as well.
Well, the Terror's version is pretty horrendous, isn't it?
It's interesting.
I think with this kind of song content, it's we sing a song about Scott the Antarctic, and just the imagery it draws to mind is just fascinating, because you're transported as if you were there. Well, certainly I am in my mind, and there's a song we sing about Scott the Antarctic, and it's that the thought of him, if he's the last surviving one of his crew, knowing that his death is just awaiting him, how that must feel. It is fascinating, isn't it?
I think it's a song that you can go back to and back to. And I have to say, I do love your version. What you said earlier about it feeling very fresh, that I got that as well, because I've known Lord Franklin for a really long time, and it was the pentangle version I heard first. And so that's the kind of the version to me. And when I heard it, it was like, ooh.
Oh, good. Well, that's high praise. It's good to hear that. The pentangle version would be just an extension of John Renbourn's, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Although I actually prefer the solo one for some reason. I think there's something very intimate about the song, because it is, the wife pleading really, and sort of with the world. She's saying to the world, "I'll give everything I have if you can just tell me where he is." It's kind of it's so poignant, really, the whole story. And when you hear it sung like that, the John Renbourn one, it kind of sticks with you.
It does. The narration kind of switches between Lady Franklin and just the voice of a sailor, and the unknown sailor almost, doesn't it, I think?
Does it? I read that, and I've never thought of it that way. I always thought it was just one voice.
I think that's the mark of a good song, isn't it? You can interpret it in more than one way. Tell me a bit more about the album. So there's, I described it as folk bangers. It's just,
Sounds like breakfast.
It's just like the greatest hits of traditional folk music. Tell me about some of the other songs you recorded.
It does seem to be, doesn't it? That was never the intention. I think it was... a couple of those I thought were very obscure songs, but of course, as soon as you do them, there's a million people. Oh, that's my favourite song, and they reel off a whole list of versions. And I mean things like Anachie Gordon. I was only really aware of the Nick Jones one, which I just loved. I love Nick Jones, and I love that version. There was some where there was weird versions, and I could never quite make them out. I mean, Barbary Allen is a classic case because, I remember Martin Garthy telling me that he thought there was a version where she was Barbary Ellen, and actually from the because I could never figure out why in the story why she was shunned, for instance. It doesn't say. It just says that he made the drinks go round, and he bought all the girls a drink, but he didn't buy her one. And there's no explanation as to why. But suddenly when Martin told me that about if she was Barbary Ellen, then she was presumably from the Barbary coast and may have been black, which could have been a reason why she was shunned. So suddenly it all fell into place. I saw that song in a different way. And also when you start listening to the different versions, She Moved Through the Fair is a great example. There's millions of versions from Van Morrison down to and Bert Jansch and all those people. And I just went in there and tried to find the essence of the song, really, and then pass that on. I wasn't aware I was doing the greatest hits, but it does seem to have kind of come out there, which is a good thing, I think. We never set out to do it. I mean, Dave and Freya let me just send them a song, and that was it. There was no question. We just got on with it.
Well, I think the secret is probably that all the songs are everyone's favourite hits, aren't they?
Yeah, it does seem that way.
We like all of them.
Yeah,
all the folk songs. Have you got a favourite song from the album?
Well, I kind of feel like they're our babies, really. It's difficult. It's difficult to have a favourite. I for different reasons, I think. I mean, I love I Wish the Wars Were All Over because it sounds to me like that song could have been written yesterday. It's it just feels so contemporary. I love Anachie Gordon. I just think it's an amazing tale, and every time I hear that song, I hear it in a different way. But I think probably the one that wins out is, well, it's probably a toss-up between Lord Franklin and She Moved Through the Fair, actually. I think, ask me on a Friday and I'll tell you a different story.
Freya, how about you?
Similar kind of top ones. Like Reg said, it's hard to choose. But yeah, Anachie Gordon is just incredibly heartbreaking, but also incredibly powerful, I find, at the same time. As I Roved Out, I just find that song absolutely beautiful, and Reg's version especially, just how delicate it is. I just absolutely love singing and playing that. Probably top of my list would be She Moved Through the Fair as well.
Dave, what about you?
Annoyingly, my answer is quite similar to Freya's, but from a slightly different angle, because I love music production. I love musical arrangement, and I think as I Roved Out and Anachie Gordon, I think when you listen to the CD, I think the parts are just so simple, but the kind of union between the three of us musically and just it just sounds really powerful. And it just made me. I remember when I was mixing the original videos before we even thought of doing a CD. I just felt really moved by the song, and I felt drawn in to listen more because of just of how it sounded together as one sound. I'd probably have to say Anachie Gordon, to be fair, is my favourite. But to play live is just it's about 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Quite long.
I think David's hit it there. The arrangements of the songs are another element. And when we do them live, I remember when I got I think it was Barbary Allen back and heard the harmonies. It was just fantastic. I couldn't believe this was just two voices, on top of mine, and it just sounded like this huge chorus. And that was the case with a lot of it. When you see us do it live, you'll see there's not an awful lot going on, but what you hear is what you hear is huge. It's kind of I think there's some point where Freya's actually playing two instruments at once.
I love that as a tagline for a show, Red.
Well, I mean, in the sense, there's not a lot of there's not a lot of grafting going on. We're craftsmen of the art, But what comes out, I think, is a joy. It's really a real pleasure to do and to be part of. And it's unusual for me because I've worked solo for quite a while now, so to actually be in an ensemble like that, and have all those gorgeous harmonies around me is a real treat.
Harking is bonny, and there lives my love. My love lies upon him and cannot remove. It cannot remove for all that I have done, and I never will forget my love, Anachie. For Anachie Gordon, he's bonny and he's broad. He'd entice any woman that ever he saw. He'd entice any woman, and so he has done me, and I never will forget my love, Anachie.
Are there any songs that you didn't record but you would like to have recorded?
From my point of view, no. That was it. They were the first 10 that came out of the hat, really. I mean, I did kind of ask around a bit, and I looked around, and I don't think we rejected any. I think I sent 10 and we recorded 10, and that was it.
Well, yeah, we just worked with what Reg sent across, and I think it felt like a really nice way when we got to the Magic 10. I can't remember what the last one was. I think it could have been I Wish the Wars. I think that was the last one we published or I mixed, but that just felt like a really nice end, and that's how we end the album as well. It just felt whole by that point.
Yeah.
We've got to focus on Lord Franklin today, and I was just noticing, Reg, how many songs you've written yourself about historical figures, and I wonder what it is that draws you into someone's story from the past. What makes you want to write about their story yourself?
I think originally it was or early on in the process. I mean, I didn't always, I wrote ballads and love songs and so on, and but when I started to write more story songs, it was just telling it the way it was as opposed to the way that it's perceived, and an example is Dick Turpin. I'd been fed the whole notion that he was a romantic, gallant, dashing, handsome man. There was the TV series. There's, historically, he's always portrayed as a Robin Hood type character, and when I found out how far from the truth that actually was, the landlord of the pub where Dick Turpin was born is actually a gig, the Bluebell Inn in Hempstead, and I played there, and he said, why don't you write the true story? Ewan MacColl has written Turpin Hero, Woody Guthrie wrote Unwelcome Guest, both of which steer wildly away from the truth, So that was a kind of a challenge, and I think that kind of opened up. From then on, I've written songs about Mother Ann Lee, the founder of the Shaker movement. As far as I know, there are no songs about Mother Ann Lee. I wrote a song about Victor Yara. There were songs about him, but not telling the story that I wanted to tell. So it's kind of, I'm not out there to fix it. I'm not out there to criticize other people's efforts, but I just think it's interesting to, these people. There's a good example is my song about Sophie Scholl. I mean, Sophie Scholl I'd never heard of, and nobody I know has ever heard of her, and yet she was a real hero of the Second World War. As a member of the White Rose movement in Germany, her and her student friends exposed the Nazis, and it was their work that really started the downfall of the Nazi Party. And in some parts of the world, she's remembered, greatly, but not here. And and when you come across something like a story like that, I felt compelled to tell it. I don't feel it's my responsibility to tell it, but I felt compelled. I thought it's a great story. It should be wider known. And since I've told the story, I've had many, many, many emails and people coming up to me and saying, thanks, it's made me go and read about her. It made me go and watch the film. And I enjoy doing it as well. I enjoy telling stories. And so, you get a story like Sophie Scholl or Mother Ann Lee, who was just this working girl from Bradford, with a terrible, terrible life, who ended up founding a religious movement, albeit a religious movement which had a shelf life, because it was based on celibacy. But the Shaker movement, I mean, it's an extraordinary story. I mean, like I say, with Franklin, it wasn't so much. I can't claim to know about his history. So I can't say I recorded this because I was a big fan of Franklin or a big fan of the story. In that case, it was just that sort of, that atmosphere, that classic love song, classic sort of the woman, the French lieutenant's woman, waiting on the shore, waiting for her man to return. And so I mean, the easy answer is I love telling stories, and in songs, if I find a good story, I'll write a song about it.
So if you were going to write your own song about Lord Franklin, what angle do you think you would take on that?
It's already been taken.
You stick with the romantic story.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is a good story. Yeah. Now, just to take a slight side step, but still in that whole kind of maritime tradition, and also I think linking in with what you've just been saying about the untold stories, I was quite interested to see that all of you have written songs about a hero from my original hometown of Hull, Lil Billocker. And another story about lost ships and another love story, I suppose. But you've all written songs about that. Is that right?
We copy Reg, and we always just try and release it just before he does, but didn't quite work out.
Yeah, so on our album, The Sea Is My Brother, which is all kind of maritime based and nautical stories. We have a song called The Headscarf Revolutionaries, which is what Lil Billocker and her army of women were known as. And I was just incredibly inspired and bowled over and just amazed by their story, what they achieved. And obviously it's an absolute tragedy and a great loss. And then for these women to come out just fighting and to have the laws changed and laws that still stand today, it's just an incredible feat. I just felt hugely inspired, so wrote a song as kind of as a way of, I feel, as kind of saying thank you to those incredible women, just so brave and powerful, and wanted to give something back in a way, if I could, acknowledge their work. And so we wrote the Headscarf Revolutionaries.
It is such an inspiring story as well, but being born from a huge, huge tragedy.
Well, we did 12 Silk Handkerchiefs, and which was the story taken from Brian Lavery's book, The Headscarf Revolutionaries. But I was just going to say, following on from Freya there, that when we did the show at Hull Minster, which we did twice, and as you know, Hull Minster was the place where the services were held for the lost trawlermen, so it was incredibly emotionally charged, and that place was packed out, and it was packed out with people who all had a connection, a family connection to somebody who died on those boats. So you can imagine how charged that was. And what I remember more than anything was people coming up to me and saying, thank you for telling the story. And that, that was extremely important in a story of living history, like Lil Balocca's. I mean, she's just had her blue plaque, years after she died. I mean, to have that story still in living history, I think it's really important to keep that story alive and let people know what happened, what those women did. It was extraordinary, and the example they set by doing what they did is also important to pass on. And so it was very rewarding to have that feedback.
So I'm going to talk more generally about traditional songs now, because that's the real focus for this podcast. But I usually ask guests how they first got into traditional music or sort of folk music in general. So I'm going to go to each of you and ask you that. And Dave, can I start with you on that one?
Yeah, we've actually, I could take you to the present actually, because we've been given quite a special gift last weekend. So for about 30 or so years, I think, there's been a box of Baring-Gould's collection collected in Devon and Cornwall, and they're illegally photocopied. I know they are available on the internet and stuff, but they were illegally photocopied in this Plymouth library about 30 years, and they're being passed from artist to artist in a big box, 202 songs, with about 4 different versions of each. And it's all, you can barely read it, to be fair, but you have to really study it. And we were chosen. So it's this box being passed from person to person for years and years. We were chosen last weekend to try and do something with it, because we've never really, we play some traditional songs at gigs, but we've never recorded anything apart from with Reg. So we actually, looking forward to the future, we intend on doing a song cycle of Devon collected folk songs from this big box. And then the one promise you get is when you have to pass it then on to other people who do something with it, not who just sit and collect dust. Because there's a great concertina player and published folk music author, Mick Bramage, who lives in the village. So we'll probably meet up with him for a few beers and try and kind of get some info out of him on the songs. But before that, it was just an upbringing of before that tangent, it was just an upbringing of music from my dad. I didn't grow up in any folk clubs or anything like that. All I know about the folk clubs is what I hear, and feel quite jealous of how it was in the 70s to how it is probably now. But yeah, just my dad's influence really, and just I think through being a musician and being interested in words and stories, I think it just becomes part of the research, if you're that way inclined, really.
Now, you called it a tangent, but I just love this story about this folk contraband that's being secretly passed around Devon and Cornwall. Tell me a little bit more about that. How long's this been going on for?
I think it's about 30 years, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
The librarian said, so it's all in the Plymouth Library, And I think Wren Music, based in Devon, digitised it, but I think they tried to charge for it first. So I think so I can't remember who the original person was. Went to Plymouth Library and intended to photocopy it. Sam Richards, I think, and the librarian said, "Oh no, you can't do that." And then I think she escaped around the corner. So then he just got on it, on the photocopier, and
there all day copying it.
And then once he'd done it, she was like, "Well, you can't do this. It's done now, isn't it?"
And off he went.
And then ran away.
Well, and folk musicians love stories about rebels as well. So that's great. Freya, how about you? How did it all start for you?
It was probably my parents, but they listened to a lot more American folk. So Joni Mitchell, Don McLean, Joan Baez. And probably the kind of pinnacle moment was my dad giving me a copy of Blue, Joni Mitchell, when I was in my teenage years. And it quite literally changed my life. It was just lyric writing and songwriting like I had never really heard before. And I guess just inspired me to start writing my own songs. And like Dave said, we love an emphasis on stories and on words. So all of that music that my parents were listening to was very much of that, very lyric based. From there, writing my own songs and then playing with Dave and starting on the folk club circuit. You then pick up songs from doing research and the draw of the stories and the lyrics and the people that make up the genre, I think, is what intrigues me.
There's something about, well, both traditional and modern folk as well, that it seems to lend itself to a much greater diversity of stories than you would get in mainstream music. You can tell anyone's story. You can touch on any theme.
That's very true. Nothing is out of bounds with folk.
No. Reg, can I come back to you on this same question? So you've talked about listening to guitarists like John Renbourn, and you've talked about American folk music as well. Do you want to expand a little bit more on your folk influences?
My first gig was a folk club. It was actually supporting Peter Bellamy in Yateley Folk Club, where I lived at the time. And I'd never really done any gig. I'd sung with a couple of school bands, but I'd never really played anything. And I think once I kind of got into the folk clubs, I've never really left it. I mean, I've had a career. I've had a pop career. I've had a country, doing Americana music with Hank Langford and doing that kind of thing. And but I've always performed in folk clubs, even the Panic Brothers, who we were successful on the alternative cabaret circuit and toured all over the place, theatres, mostly theatres and bigger venues. So, I mean, we did folk clubs all the time. But I remember, doing Walthamstow Folk Club, where the director of the Sidmouth Folk Club ran that for years. So I've always had that connection. And I've always held the belief that what I do is folk music. I mean, there are people out there who will argue with that. And, there are people who will argue that folk music is non-commercial music that is not ascribed to any particular songwriter and so on, and that what I do is commercial. But I don't believe that. I believe I tell the stories of my world, the world around me. When I sing about Lillian Bolocka, I tell the story of my time, in 200 years' time, when they want to know about Lillian Bolocka, they'll probably be looking at songs of this, of Dave and Freya's song and my song, and, they'll be looking to those for their information, not 200 years back. And, when I sing songs about austerity and people dying from that, and that's a historical document. And that, to me, that's what folk music is. It's the stories of folk, it's the stories of us people and told in song. And it's a living, I've always believed it's a living tradition. It's something that goes on and on and on, and songs will find their way into the canon. There will be those who will forever try and keep them out because they believe that there is a holy, collection and it shouldn't go beyond that. Lord Franklin was originally published as a broadsheet. People made money from broadsheets. That's what they were for. They took their broadsheets to the village square and they sang the song and then they waved their broadsheets around. People gave them money. That's, that's the folk CD, mate.
Well, no, that's absolutely right, isn't it? Because there's nothing that's sort of intrinsically pure about a traditional song. I mean, someone wrote it, As you say, someone probably made money out of it, and you're continuing that tradition.
Well, I think so. Sorry, but I said broadsheets. I mean broadsides,
Broadsides.
obviously. Yeah. Well, I'm making a living from music. That's what I'm doing, and to me, it's all fair game. Freya said there's no boundaries. I mean, as far one thing about never having been sort of blighted by enormous success is the fact that you can carry on doing what you want, you can follow your heart in what you do, and I can make that album. If I'd been successful as a pop star, I'd probably have real trouble making a folk album now. So thank goodness I didn't get successful as a pop star. Thank goodness I didn't make all that money. But I think having the freedom to tell those stories. I think that's the folk. That's folk in this country. It's the clubs and the forums for folk music. It's all about continuing to tell the stories of our country, and I think it's great.
Adieu, sweet lovely Nancy, 10,000 times adieu. I am going across the ocean, love, to seek for something new. Come change your ring with me, dear girl, come change your ring with me. For it might be a token of our true love while I am on the sea.
Tell us a bit about the recording process.
We employed a friend of David and Freya's, Josh Best-Shaw, who's from Bristol, and he came down. We looked for a church, and we wanted to record it in a nice space, in a good folky space, And so we found this beautiful church in South Brent, St Petrock's, and they were amazing. The people there they couldn't have been more welcoming, and they just gave us a church basically. We went in there for a few days with Josh, and Josh brought his equipment in, and we actually played them all live, and we just recorded them one after another until we got them right.
Yeah, it was just, we really wanted to. We didn't want to overcomplicate it, because I have a tendency when we record our own stuff to just layer it and make it sound huge, kind of like that Phil Spector wall of sound. But we kind of realised early on, just by little conversations and hearing things back, that less was definitely more. And so we really kind of wanted to honour the live sound. And we recorded it in situ in the church. We actually launched the CD in the same church, which felt like the right thing to do. And we all just shared one microphone, which it's not something you see very often anymore. So it was, we really were true to the whole process.
And I think the sound reflects that. I mean, I don't know what you think, Jenny, but, it has that live ambience about it, I think. It has that really lovely, rich ambience.
Yes, it does. It's a very compelling sound. How can people get hold of the album?
The best place is probably to buy it through Reg's Bandcamp page.
There's Bandcamp or there's regmeuross.com, which is my website. Either one of those.
And we can put the link in the show notes as well so people can find it. Yeah. And I think you're touring as well, aren't you, in the next few weeks?
We're doing a special kind of double whammy of gigs in Ennerdale in the Lake District. Friday the 18th, Saturday the 19th of March. We're playing the Gather in Ennerdale, which is a lovely tiny little art centre. So we're doing a night of Songs of Love and Death on the Friday, and then we're each doing a set of our own original songs on the Saturday.
I believe that's live streamed as well.
It is live streamed.
If you can't make it to Ennerdale, you can watch the stream.
So you can be with us in person, or you can be with us online, and they really do a good job on the tech there. So they're really you'll get a real value for money for the live stream there, which is a really nice thing to have happened, the hybrid gigs. And then our main tour, we've got festivals coming up, but our main tour is mid-April. So we're playing in Kent and Suffolk at the John Peel Centre, Sound Lounge in Sutton, Green Note in London, Cantonacre in Worcestershire. So that's kind of around about the 14th to the 17th of April. So they're kind of the main ones. And then we're playing at Beardy Folk Festival in June. But I'm sure there's more to come. I think the feedback we've had, especially from festivals we've played, is the set just is a perfect fit for a folk festival, and a lot of people have said that these songs should be played at a folk festival. And people have got quite emotional actually seeing our set and hearing the songs, and I think it could be an ongoing thing that we just kind of live off this album for the next few years at festivals. That would be quite nice for us.
All those years spent crafting original songs, and I needn't have bothered.
As I roved out on a bright May morning to view the meadows and the flowers gay, who should I espy but my own true lover, as she sat under the willow tree. I took off my hat and I did salute her. I did salute her most courageously.
Pete Townsend invited me to write some songs about Woody Guthrie, about a particular song that Woody Guthrie wrote called Deportees, and that's now, thanks to lockdown, has become a fully fledged 14-episode podcast and an album and a stage show, which will be coming up sometime soon. It's called Fire and Dust, and has a full band and so on. And the other one is my slave trade project, which is a look into the slave trade, focusing on the West Country, because it's kind of where the commercial slave trade began in Plymouth in 1562 and ended, it didn't end, but the first town to plead for abolition was Bridgewater in Somerset. So I've kind of centred it around there, and I've got a band of great musicians, Cohen, Braithwaite, Kilcoyne, Jolly, Philly, Sissoko, Encore, Jazz Gale, singer, and I've been working those two projects. Sorry, they're not Reg, Harbottle and Jonas projects, but that's what I've been busy doing.
We're good friends of Cohen as well. He's a master player.
Yeah. He's amazing. He is. Yeah, he's astonishing. And to hear Cora, African Cora and Concertina together is quite a treat.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Look forward to those. And Dave and Freya, any projects that you've got that you want to talk about?
Our biggest project is Freya's having a baby.
That's a fantastic project.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So
that'll be occupying.
Does your project have a name? Or a gender?
So I think we're going to be doing a bit of research for a bit. And then,
fantastic.
Oh, how lovely. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reg Meuross, Dave and Freya, otherwise known as Harbottle and Jonas, for coming on the show. Absolutely loved talking to you. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. It's been lovely.
We'll be back next month with more interviews and stories and, of course, traditional songs. Do give us a follow on Twitter if you don't already. We're Handed Down Pod. Until next time, here's Reg Meuross, Harbottle and Jonas with Lord Franklin.
Was homeward bound one night on the Dee. Swinging in my hammock I fell asleep. I dreamed a dream, I thought it true, concerning Franklin and his gallant crew. With 100 seamen he sailed away, the frozen ocean in the month of May, to seek a passage around the pole, where we poor seamen do sometimes arrows go. Through cruel hardships they mainly strove. Their ships on mountains of ice was drove. Only the Eskimo in his skin canoe was the only one that ever came through. In Baffin Bay, where the whalefish blow, the fate of Franklin no man may know. The fate of Franklin no tongue can tell. Where Franklin alone with his sailors dwell. Now my burden, it gives me pain. For my long-lost Franklin lies across the main. 10,000 pounds would I freely give to say on earth that my Franklin